Hello, boys and girls. We are going to go over your I can statements this week for math. Um, so I know it's been quite a few weeks, quite a few days since we have worked on anything involving math or involving fractions, but we will be working with fractions quite a bit from this point on for the rest of the year. So they might not be something that you love, but you are going to be very familiar with them and you're going to work with them a lot the rest of the year. So for this week, we're working on this big standard here, which I'm not even going to read that to you because it's just kind of tricky to understand. That's why we have these I can statements. So if you can see my cursor, it's over here on the left side of the screen, and I'll highlight this part actually. Here's our first I can statement. I can use fraction models and equations to add fractions with common denominators in real-world problems. I know that also sounds kind of tricky and confusing, but I promise you this one is easier to understand than the words that were above that I didn't read. And then our second I can statement is below. It's very similar, and it says I can use fraction models and equations to help me subtract fractions with common denominators in real-world problems. So I want you to look right over here on the right side at the academic vocabulary. And we have three terms. The first one is common denominator. The second one is denominator, and the third one is numerator. So I'm actually going to start from the bottom, the word numerator. Remember, the numerator is the number on top of the fraction line, and that represents how many pieces we have in the whole. Well, how many pieces out of the whole number. So if our fraction was 1/4, the 1 represents that I have 1 out of 4 pieces. The 4 on the bottom of the fraction line represents that it takes 4 pieces to create the whole. So that word is denominator. The denominator is the number on the bottom, and it represents how many pieces make up the whole. A common denominator. So we only hear about a common denominator if we're working with more than one fraction at a time. So we might have two fractions and say the first one is 1/2 and the second one is 1/3. Well, those two fractions don't have the same number on the bottom. They don't have the same denominator. One was 2 and one was 3. So if a fraction or two fractions have a common denominator, it means the number on the bottom of the fraction is the same. So if I had one fraction that was 3/12 and then my other fraction was 6/12, those fractions have common denominators because the number on the bottom is 12 in both fractions. So these were your I can statements for the week and a little bit of review for your vocabulary words with math this week. Now, you won't have a test or anything over these words. This was just basically to share them with you and for you to remember what they are. And we kind of just learned common denominator. That hasn't been one of our vocab words that we've gone over yet before. So after this video, you are going to watch your mini lesson, and your mini lesson will have something to do with decomposing fractions. So if you decompose something, it means that you break it apart. So you'll be watching a video that talks about breaking fractions apart.